Gonzalez presenting for Professor Sundstrom's Week 7. Without further ado, let's get started. And this week's topics were bureaucracy and the judicial branch. Top 5 things the average American may not know about bureaucracy. So, common misconceptions are that they're inefficient, they're very uniform, they may take political sides, that red tape oppresses, and that bureaucrats make the laws. So the very first misconception is that bureaucracies actually are designed to create order and reduce corruption within these subcategories, and I'll go over those a little later or in the next misconception. And along with that, they also enhance accountability in public services. Now, the second misconception is that they're very uniform. So this is pretty false. The truth is that they range from the president's cabinet to the CIA to NASA, the FCC, the U.S. Postal Service, Amtrak. All of those are considered bureaucracies. And so instead of them being very uniform, they're actually they are very diverse. It is very diverse. And the third misconception is that they take sides. Federal employees cannot legally take sides, politically speaking. They must stay politically neutral in their official roles, as this helps maintain their jobs, actually. Because how is it going to be that they are going to change jobs, or, that every federal employee is going to change with every president, or, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't necessarily make sense. Along with this, there were also some rumors going around earlier this month that Postal Service workers were on the red side and were reporting people of immigrant status, which I guess by this rule would have to be false. And the fourth misconception is that red tape oppresses, when in actuality the procedures and forms are there to ensure fairness, due process, and accountability of workers. So honestly, this red tape thing is more so employees follow the rules, especially in bureaucracies, because most of them are public business. And the fifth misconception is that bureaucrats make the laws. They do not necessarily make the laws, they implement laws written by Congress, but they make and enforce their own regulations within their businesses or within their categories. For example, pretty sure NASA and the U.S. Postal Service have very different laws or rules in between themselves. So that is pretty false. And I'm sure this is probably a misconception because of the probable effects bureaucrats might have on Congress or on political parties, but that is obviously false. Now moving on to top 5 things the average American may not know about the American judicial system. A misconception is that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over every case. This is false. They only have jurisdiction in cases where the law issue is federal, involves treaties, involves the Constitution, or where the government is a party to the litigation. So, for example, if something is happening that is unconstitutional, then the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction to take over. And now moving on to the second misconception. The second misconception is that it only involves criminal cases. The judicial branch involves every court of law and This involves civil disputes, family matters, and much more. So, for example, I know unfortunately something common is like custody over a child with divorced parents. The court issues that too, or they have jurisdiction over that too, and they dispute that. The third misconception is that members on the Supreme Court have terms. So, this is a very fortunate law or fact, because if judges did have terms, such as presidents and other political figures, they would then be then there would be an imbalance of power between the branches. Like if the judicial and the executive branch were, the judicial and the executive branch were both red, then there would be an imbalance with the legislative branch. So, yeah. And the fourth misconception is that court decisions are always final. This is false, as court decisions can always be overturned. And with American history, there's have been a lot of things that have been overturned. One of the most controversial ones are earlier this decade are the overturning of Roe v. Wade, as it started a lot of controversy in every state. And yeah. So moving on to the fifth misconception. The fifth misconception is that the executive power holds power over the judiciary branch. This is very false, as they are equal, or they are supposed to be equal, even though they have different responsibilities. The president, however, can only appoint a new member to the courts, and their impact on the Supreme Court decisions is very limited due to their term length, So a president, their term length is only 4 to 8 years, or their maximum is only 8 years, when a member on the Supreme Court is as long as they want to be on the Supreme Court. Yeah. And now moving on to top 5 things I know now that I did not know 7 weeks ago. Honestly, everything that I learned in this class the past 7 weeks is I did not know anything. I try not to get political, but unfortunately, with the circumstances going around in the United States, I like that I was fortunate enough to have taken this course. So first off, I actually did not know my rights. I did not take government class in high school, so I didn't know my rights. I didn't know like my freedom of speech, of religion, all of that. So one of the first things were my rights, and a big one that I liked was that fighting words are not protected, are not protected speech. So if somebody wants to start a fight, then that is not protected speech if it's violent. And another thing that I liked was the freedom of press, that no government is allowed to censor the press, because the press is essential for the political system to work. And then moving on to the second thing that I did not know is that when voters decide, they usually stick to party loyalty, candidate characteristics, or issues involved. Like those are the top three things that influence somebody's vote. And another thing that I did not know, the third thing, is that the role of political parties. I did not know that. Well, I knew that they recruited and they nominate, but I did not know their influence on society, such as mobilizing voters and facilitating electoral choice. Yeah, I did not know all of that. Yeah. Oh, and I also did not know the process, like the application process. I didn't know any of that. Okay. And then moving on to the fourth thing, I didn't know the difference between interest groups and political parties. And I learned that political parties are concerned with winning elections and controlling the government, while interest groups prioritize whatever their interests are. So whatever their interest is, if they align with any political head, then that political figure is their interest and they will support them. Yeah, that was crazy. And the fifth one is that I did not know is the effect of the media on politics. Watching a lot of the videos and the YouTube videos, and then I think the algorithm kind of aligned with this class, and I saw the polarization in today. And I think even looking back to Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's presidential runs this past year, it was crazy. Just, and also how the effect of misinformation, the spread of misinformation, really takes a toll on this polarization. And yeah, and along with that, just I believe the different media types, how even though newspapers and magazines are a little outdated and not many people read them, it's still how a lot of people gain their information. Broadcast and the internet being the biggest one. I don't know. I think it's so crazy that many people still need to inform themselves. And yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody have a blessed night. Goodbye.